Hi, this will be a short tutorial on motion tracking a shot of a watch so that we can create some nice hologram style animation with it. So I have opened up Blender 2.68 and loaded in my video clip. I will be supplying this video clip if you want to follow this tutorial, so you can track along with me. So basically it is a shot of a glove wearing a hand, sorry, a hand wearing a glove with a watch on top of the glove. And it's very dark, and I believe the camera was set to 1/60, which is, or was it 1/50? Around about, they recommend 1/50 for 24 frames per second. But and obviously there is quite a bit of blur if I pause somewhere. If I zoom in on the 6 there. As far as motion, I have tracked this before, and there is enough parallax motion, etc., and points to track. It is not, I'm going to say this, it is not the easiest track to do. For one, this was shot on a really low f-stop, probably either f1.4 or f2, with the watch really quite close to the lens, so the depth of field is the sharp point is really small in 3D space. As well, that coupled with the relatively fast motion and blur makes this one of the more trickier shots to track. So I'm just going to get started. I'm using the full clip that I shot on the camera. But I will be uploading for you guys the cropped, or not cropped, edited clip, so you only have what you need. So for me, my start frames are 364 and 452. You can just import the clip, and in the toolbar menu, you can scroll down to the very bottom and see set scene frames, which will set the scene start and end frames to the same as the length of your film. Okay, so let's set up some camera data. The camera is a Nikon D7000, and the focal length is 50mm. Now go up to objects and add a new object. We will be tracking as an object because the camera is locked off on a tripod. It means there's no camera movement, so we only have to track the object. Okay, so hit prefetch frames. This will well, if some of the frames weren't cached to the RAM, it will do it, so that playback is really quite smooth, and you can scrub in between as fast as you want without a problem. So let's just play the clip to stop that. Play the clip by hitting Alt A to get a picture of what we're going to be tracking. So the arm rotates, and you can see the watch, but the points that we will be tracking on the watch face aren't visible all the time, so that's going to pose a kind of a problem. However, we can circumvent that problem by only having the track and the animation of the hologram visible once we can see the face of the watch. Otherwise, we have nothing to track when the face of the watch is not pointing towards us. So now that we have the camera data set up, I'm going to go to the default menu and set the scene camera to the same D7000, 50 millimeters. I'm not going to add an object constraint yet. I will be showing that and that parts in the constraints part in tracking later on. So let's get started. Go back to the motion tracking tab, and where are we going to start our track? Let's start with some of the numbers. They might be the easiest to track. So scroll up in the left pane, the T toolbar menu. You can make that invisible and visible again just by hitting T. Under tracker settings, hit the drop down and go to fast motion. That seems that oh yeah, and change the motion model to LOC location because we won't be tracking perspective at the moment. That seems to handle the blur the best. Now to add a tracker marker, just hold Control and click wherever you want that marker to be. So I'm just going to click there on the 9 of the watch. Now scroll in the end menu on the far right and scroll all the way down until we see under marker display, we see the search button thingy and tick that. Now we have this search box outside our tracker box. Sometimes if your tracker marker is moving around whilst tracking, it is best to increase the search size. This will mean it tracks not quite as fast as with the small search size, but it should be a bit more accurate because it's using all the data within the that square. So I'm at the very end of the scene, and I'm going to scroll down on the left here and hit the backwards play button, which tracks the markers backwards in the scene. If you hit L whilst selecting your tracker, it will lock the view's perspective right onto that single marker, and this means you can see how it just skipped then. You can see if it jumps around. So it just jumped from the 9 to the 8. I am going to find just before it jumps and then hit clear before, because we're tracking backwards. Normally we would hit clear after. I'm going to skip ahead a single frame and then hit G and manually move that marker back onto the 9. I'm going to do it again just in case, because this is a blurry point in the clip. Increase the search size just a bit to see if that helps, and then hit drag backwards. And done. Obviously it fell off then because it got too dark, so I'm just going to hit clear before. And really that's all we can do for that marker, because the watch face is turning away from the camera and you can't see it at all. So basically now I am just going to repeat this process with a few more points around the watch's face, and I will come back when that is done to show you some more tracking points on the glove that we will put so that we get a nice 3D motion. So we'll be back soon. So now that we have a number of markers on the watch face, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 markers, which is the minimum markers to have on both keyframes when solving, which I will talk about shortly. 8 is the minimum for a nice 3D solve. So what I am going to do is I am now going to set the keyframe A and keyframe B. What you want to do is set keyframe A just before a lot of rotation, motion. You want parallax effect basically, so it's hard to explain. It's Google it basically if sorry, Google it if it you don't quite understand what parallax effect and motion is. It's basically you need, to put it basically, you need 3D motion in the scene. So I have a lot of motion when the watch turns at the beginning of the clip, so I'm going to select keyframe A to be 388 and keyframe B to be when the watch stops moving 398. Because we are in object tracking, you cannot refine focal length K1 or K2. So now that we have that set up, I am just going to hit, actually I will change the beginning of the movie to when actually I'll leave it for now. So now I'm just going to hit solve under the solve tab on the left, object motion. The computer goes through and works it out. Okay, so we have a solve error of 0.1898. So if we drag the right to the left, the little tab up at the top, we create a new window with the camera selected. I'll just head back to the default page so we can really see the whole window. So I'm now going to, under object constraints with the camera selected, I'm going to add a camera solver. Now, even though this is object tracking, what the camera solver constraint does is it creates a whole bunch of little empties. Well, yeah, empties. They're called camera tracking markers on in front of the scene. Now they're a bit big, so you can't really see the perspective of the object. So I'm going to hit N, and under motion tracking tab, I am going to change the size of the plane axis tracks to 0.01. Now if we go into hit 0 and go into camera view, we can see that all the markers there roughly represent the watch face. So if I scroll through the or play the video, we can see that they do absolutely nothing at the beginning of the clip, because nothing is tracked at the very beginning because the watch face is facing away from the camera. And then they move quite nicely. They seem to be following the watch, but let's check that out. So head back to the motion tracking tab, and on the left down the bottom, hit set as background. This will set the video as kind of transparent behind the camera. You can't see it now because you have to enable it. So in the right end tab, scroll down the bottom, and under background images, tick the box, hit add image, and just click movie clip. Now I will delete this cube for now because it is getting in the way. and then I will change under where it says no proxy full render, I will change it to 25%. This ensures that the video, which is 1920 by 1080 in dimensions, will play back smoothly. Now just hit Alt A to play, and you can see once it is tracked, the points really line up nicely. They all seem to be moving, they don't seem to be drifting at all, so that is quite good. Now to check this, head back to the motion tracking tab, and a sneaky little feature on the right tab, scroll down and you will see 3D markers. Click that and you will get these little dots, either a red dot or a green dot will show up in the middle of the track. At the moment, because there's no tracking going on, it's a bit dodgy, but when they're all enabled, basically what happens is if there's an error with the tracking marker because it is drifting on the tracked object, on the tracked whatever video, you will see the approximation of that 3D marker, the green dot. If it goes outside the tracking box, it will turn red, and this means that that point is no longer reliable. This means that you either have to fix up that tracking point or delete it. So if I scroll through, I'm going to select all the markers and hit L to lock the view to them so I can see better, and then untick search and then tick thin markers so we can see the green dots better, and then scroll through. It none of them turn red and they all seem to stay nicely even on the rotation, except for one when it falls off, but that's okay, we can't do anything about that, even on the rotation of the object. Now because we will have most of the animation come out, most of the hologram come out, maybe a little bit when it's rotating towards us, but mostly when it is not moving. This is quite good. So now we have checked the 3D points, and we can turn off 3D markers, turn search, or you can leave search off, turn thin markers off if you want, and click names and status. This means that if you select a marker, it will show you its average error value. A solve error of 0 to maybe 0.4 is really quite good. 0.4 to 0.6 is alright, and then 0.6 to 1 is possibly doable. You'll have to check it in the 3D scene. Above 1, you'll probably have problems like drifting, the moving, vibrating markers, stuff like that. So 0.18 for a track is actually really quite good, and I'm happy with that. And if you get that value, if you followed me, you should be too. So that is done. We have the object tracked. A good practice is to hit tab and go to reconstruction. We will be setting up scene scales now. Select 2 points, and I estimate that's maybe like 2 millimeters away from each other, and we can sit in distance. The units of the distance thing is in meters, so 2 millimeters would be 0.02. I hope I'm right. 0.02 would be 2 centimeters, right? Yeah, okay, 0.002. Feel free to correct me. Set that, and ooh, this is slightly different. Head back to well, what it has done here is the markers, the watch face is probably not that large. Just for reference, each one of these cubes on the grid on the floor is 1 meter. So that means that approximately the distance between the object and the camera is about 4 meters. This was not true in tracking. It was probably about 0.4 meters. So let's just select 2 bundles there. Set the scale. Here we go. Set hit set scale. And did we? No, that made it too big. I haven't set in 3D tracking. You just select 2 bundles and you only have 1 section to set the scale, and that'll hopefully line up your scene nicely with 3D space. So that doesn't work. Let's try distance 0.002. Hit set scale under object, hit default, and where is our markers? That might be correct. I'm just going to under the camera tab change the size of the camera to a lot less. I'm going to move the camera to the grid. It is really quite small. Now, if that grid marker there is okay, so one of the things that we set was incorrect, because just gauging the distance between the object and the camera there is probably like 4 centimeters. So just select the camera and hit S to scale. What we want to do, actually hit Alt R to change the rotation of the camera, and hit RX90. Hit 3 to go into side view, and as you can see, the grid is in 10 centimeter blocks. The larger blocks and then the smaller ones are single centimeters. We want the distance between the group of markers and the point of the camera to be about 45-50 centimeters. Let's try 50 centimeters. So that would be about there. So that's the approximate size of a camera. This setting the scale of the scene is important when using post-processing like depth of field blur. So now that we have that done, I'm going to raise the camera up a little bit and just point it down, just to represent what it looked like in real, and play it, and it works quite nicely. Now the way to get a object to follow those markers there, the solved object, is really quite easy. Add a cube, really scale it down, because it is 4 meters, 2 meters in diameter, width, sorry, not diameter, it's not a circle. Anyway, so scale it down. You don't have to parent it to the markers, you just have to, under constraints, add a object solver. Don't move it into position now, because when we add the object it will move. Under object, change it to not camera but object, and change camera to camera, the camera that we are using. Now we can move it nicely into position. If we hit 0 there, we can go back into camera view, and just maybe with the markers, change them to 0.005 or 0.002. So we can see the plane of the watch face there. Now just rotate the cube by clicking R until it matches nicely. This is so it kind of sits on the front of the watch. Now if we play it, it won't match there, and it should do there. So if I go back and scroll through, it seems to match the match the watch quite nicely. It just checking perspective. Yep, the focal length is 50 millimeters. It doesn't move around, and that's okay. So Shift A to add a UV sphere. Scale it down a whole bunch. Add the object. Actually, before you do that, hit 1 to go into side view, and Z to go into wireframe view, and just delete all the bottom vertices. We only want half a sphere. Add the object constraint, object camera, move it to the cursor, move it to the object, the tracked object. Scale it up a bit, try and get it to match. Ultimately, basically what we want is that sphere to kind of sit on the front of the watch like a dome. Kind of like that. That's not too bad. So what I am going to do is now we need something to put on the front of that sphere. I'm going to make it a little bit flatter by hitting scale S and then Z twice to scale on locally. Make it a little bit flatter. Add a new material, make it shadeless, make it black, go to the world tab, make that black. We won't be rendering with alpha today, we will just be rendering as whatever you want, a MOV or something, because we will be doing the compositing within Blender, just using mix blend modes. So now that is done, add a new scene and click new for a empty scene. Zoom out, add a camera, Alt R, Alt G to reset rotation and location, hit GZ to move it up, and under the camera tab make it orthographic. Now that is done, Shift A to add a circle. Going to change the vertices to 128 and change the fill to nothing. Now if I hit tab, you will see all these vertices, but no actual faces. We're going to hit E and then S to scale, to just scale it in a bit, so now we have a ring. I'm going to add a new material, make it a nice blue, and hit shadeless. So now that we have the neon blue ring, hit 0 to go into orthographic camera mode. Go into the render settings and change it 1920 to 1080 by 1080, so we have a square. Select the camera and then change the orthographic scale so it matches the circle. So I am going to have a little animation. The circle is going to appear and scale up over, let's say, 60 frames. So select the circle, hit I to insert a keyframe menu, and then hit S for scaling or select scaling. And then go back to the very first frame, frame number 1. Scale the circle by hitting S, and then press 0 to make it have 0 scale, so it is absolutely not visible at all. Hit I whilst do not deselect it, and then scaling again. So we were basically animating backwards there. That way the circle appears quite nicely if we play it. Not too bad, although I think it is a bit slow. It would be nicer if it was a bit snappier. So drag out the side, go to graph editor, A to deselect all, and B to have a selection box thing, drag it over the far right point, and GX to drag along the X axis on the graph editor. Let's play it back, and much better. So now let's do the same thing. I'm going to add a T for Tim. You can add whatever you want. Delete everything. I'm going to, under the font menu on the right here, I'm going to change it to center, move it along the y-axis so it's in the center, and let's add a new material and make it a nice green. Make it shadeless. And I'm just going to offset the under the font menu, the F on the right there. I'm going to offset the lettering on the y-axis just a bit so it is in the center of the T, so when we scale it, it scales nicely. I'm going to move it back to the center of the frame. I am going to go forward a few frames, insert scaling, go back a bit, S0, insert scaling again, and now we have, if we play the animation, a circle appears, and then a T. Cool. Just for the purpose of that tutorial, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to stop at frame 34. Hit put the end frames for this scene as 34. I am going to go to rendering, change it to 23.98 frames per second, which was just to match it to the original digital SLR footage. I am going to change its output to a folder. So I'm just going to make a new folder called tutorial, output it into there, call it watch animation 1, just in case we want multiple levels, and I'm going to change the output to AVI raw. This means that it will be raw render. The file size will be larger, but it will be a single file. You could always render it as a PNG series, but this will probably be slightly easier. Just in case, I'm going to save tutorial.blend, whatever you want. Keep saving, don't forget to do that, and I'm going to render the animation. As you can see, it is very, very, very fast at rendering because we have no shading, no lighting, just shapes, and we're done. Now we can go back to scene, which is the first scene. We were just in scene 0.1. I'm going to select the half sphere, semi-sphere there. Under its material tab, go to the texture button on the right there, hit new, change it to image or movie, select open, select our file in the folder, and
that is all we have to do. You can deselect use alpha. You don't have to UV map it. It should work actually quite nicely. We can head to textured mode in the viewport. And one thing, when you're using a movie file as a texture in Blender, you have to set the start and end frames. The start frame and the length. So you can just hit that button called match movie length. This will match the video to that, and then you can hit put the start frame as the start frame in this current scene, which is 364. It'll probably be 1 for you guys, so that's alright. And then we'll sweet. Now if we should play. Frames 34, start 364. Here we go. See now, if you see in the viewport, if I just get rid of this animation window, you can see the big black steering sphere. If we scroll forward, you should see normally let's try changing it to render preview. Oh good, it works. So basically it will not update a video texture in texture viewport shading. Actually it might. No, it won't update it. Maybe change the shading mode to multi-texture. No, that won't do it either. Texture solid, no. Single texture, no. Okay, so the only way to see an update is to change it to the new render preview in Blender. You can go back a frame and you can see slowly that the T disappears and then the circle disappears. Now, moving on to compositing. The way that we are going to composite this on top of the footage is just in Blender using the compositing tab. Hit use nodes. This is our scene and this is the output, the composite output. Shift A to input movie clip. It automatically selects the digital SLR footage. Shift A to add a distort scale node to match, because we're rendering at 50% at the moment, just so it's nice and snappy. And then add color mix, change mix to add. Put the video into the first socket and the render into the second socket. Put the output of the add node into the render result. So now if we go forward to where we have some animation, you can see that when I hit F12 to render, we have the watch with a T and a circle on it in the front, which is exactly what we want. I am going to Control Shift click on the render layer and then hit backdrop, and you can see now here in this window that we have the backdrop, which is the rendered from the render layer from the scene, so the CGI. If I do the same thing for the movie clip, we just have the watch. So there are two layers. To snazzy it up a bit, I'm going to add a filter defocus node. Connect the Z channels. Unclick preview, click use Z buffer, and change that to maybe, let's try 60. Did it blur much? No. Let's try 20. Oh, sorry. Don't forget to put that into the add node socket. We can see it's blurring quite a bit. This is because the camera's focal point is at 0, so it is as close as possible to the camera as it could theoretically be. So select the camera, go to the camera tab, click display limits, click the limits thing, and change the focal distance to what's that, 0.45 meters, which is about where the lens will be. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 0.48. That matches nicely. Re-render, and there. It is blurred because it is slightly closer to the camera than the watches. I'm going to change the f-stop to, let's say, well, to be correct, I'm going to change the f-stop to 2.0, which was the real f-stop used on the camera. This blurs it way too much, so we're going to reduce max blur. Just play with it until it looks okay. 4, maybe 2.7. That looks right. To add a bit of color kind of thing, I'm going to add a filter glare node before the blur. I'm going to change it from streaks to fog glow. I'll just show that there, and then hit threshold and put it at 0. We now see it gives it a nice kind of fog glow kind of thing. It looks like the light is reflecting in the lens, kind of like a lens glare, just not so strong. You can see here, if I make this bigger, shift spacebar, by the way, with the mouse in the window to make it full screen, that the very edge of the blue circle is being cut off. This is because the sphere that we have the image mapped to is too spherical. We need to make it a bit, squash it and make it a bit flatter. So scale SZ, press Z twice to scale along the local Z axis, and then make it flatter. The delete or period dot full stop key with the object selected to move the camera towards it. See, it's much flatter now. So now we can see we have the whole sphere visible. If we go back to compositing, move back a few frames, we can see that, and then re-render, we can see that the sphere does get larger, but there is a problem that the sphere, the animation plays when starting. I set it excuse me, I set the animation to begin playing at frame 364, which is incorrect because the tracking of the object doesn't start until later in the scene. This means that the rendered object will be visible in its incorrect place because it is not tracked yet. So let's change that. Using the preview, I'm going to change it from behind the object to on the front, just so we can see it a bit better. It's very dark, don't forget that. And then it starts about frame 388. So I'm going to change the beginning frame to 388, the start frame to 388. And that's all good. Go forward a few frames, render, and we have a small dot. Let's test it out. I'm going to change the render size to 25%. I'm going to change, I'm going to leave the render directory at the temporary directory just for now, because we're not going to be using the final render, the render that we're doing now. And I'm going to change the file format to AVI RAW, just because it's a simple click. It's not something that I'd use change the frame rate to 23.98 and go render animation. This will render reasonably quickly because it is such a low resolution. Once that is done, we can use the play button in Blender to play back the rendered sequence. So what are we up to? 388. So this is definitely a longer tutorial of mine. I'll hopefully insert some like quick links to different sections of the video if you want to watch just the compositing or just the motion tracking, if you already know something. So the T pops up there and it's working quite nicely. Frame 430 out of 452, so 22 more frames. If you notice, the T is in orientation with the camera pointing up nicely. However, the watch is, if you look closely, the 12 of the watch is downwards and the 6 is upwards. So perspectives aren't quite matching nicely. So rendering is done, and let's hit the play button. A new window should pop up, and we can see it is playing there. It looks good. The circle pops up nicely. It is matched to the watch nicely. I think the depth of field is a bit strong. It's a bit too blurred. So let's go back into the compositor. Change the max blur to let's say 1. It's much better. The blur on the actual like physical motion blur recorded by the camera is a bit stronger than what is represented by the motion blur on the CGI element. So I'm just going to cycle back. Here we go. I found a nice frame that has a reasonable amount of blur on the numbers of the watch, so we can use that to compare it to the blur on the CGI element. So I'm going to re-render. We just have a small circle there, that'll be fine. I'm going to, under the render passes tab on the right there, sorry, it's like 2 picture frames called render layers. I'm going to, under passes, click the arrow and enable vector. I'm going to add a filter, vector blur. It was under filter, Shift A, then filter. I'm going to connect image to image, etc. Connect Z to the Z spot and speed to the speed spot. I'm going to re-render so it has speed, and you can see it is a little bit blurred there. So if we I'll just make this backdrop bigger. Where is it? Zoom. We can see the circle, the blue circle faintly there. Now if I show you with vector blur enabled, it is slightly blurred. Re-render, looks good. The blur scaling factor 1 seems usable for this situation. Just as a test, I'm going to change the resolution to 1920 by 1080. I'm going to so it's rendering out, and if we look at it, it is it's blurring, maybe a little bit too much. So let's try 0.75. Computing. That's alright. That looks good. Blur samples 32 will be fine for really good production. you'd probably increase it to 64 or 128 just so it is smooth. What blurring samples does is see if I reduce it to 2, you will see maybe say 12. You will see that there is a like gaps in between each sample. The more samples you have, the less visible gaps. Technically, they're not that unless you have really fast motion, they're not that visible. Primarily because this is only one frame of the animation, and you can't see you frame by frame unless you pause the video. So when you're just watching it normally, it should be fine. So that's alright. I'm going to change the render resolution back to 25%. Re-render the animation. It's going through nicely. 0.4 seconds per frame, which is good. Hopefully it will be done soon. So as far as compositing goes, we have a few effects applied. We have defocus, we have vector blur, and we have glare. All of these come together nicely to give a nice stylistic effect to the visual effects render. And frame 452 done. So let's hit the play button under render settings. T pops up. Let's watch for See, you can't even see the blur. It's just small stuff. And that's it. I would if I were you, I would probably rotate the sphere, the hemisphere here, along its local z-axis by 180 degrees. Re-render just so that the T is inverted and matches the rendered scene. Now that is done, I would distort the render and I would flip it by the X, and then I would flip it by you can just do X and Y, so just change it to X and Y, and then you can see now we have the watch in the top of the frame with 12 at the top, 6 at the bottom, like it should be, as if the watch was facing the camera, like as it's a perspective. The T matches that now. I'm going to save that. I'm happy with that. Change the resolution to 100% of 1920 by 1080. Change the render directory back to your file. Mine is tutorial. I'm going to call it final render. I would change the render output to a JPEG or PNG sequence. Be aware that you do not need RGBA, seeing as we have already composited it within Blender. You could always render the scene out without the video file behind it, so you would just have the black with the hologram in front, and then you could composite it in a After Effects, like another software package like After Effects or Nuke or whatever you use. So you could change it later, but I'm just doing it for this tutorial, so I'll just do it in Blender. Change it to a PNG or JPEG sequence. I'm just going to leave it at AVI RAW, so I have less files. And then you're pretty much done. You could always, I'm just going to duplicate this, if I can select this hemisphere, scale it down, move it along its local axis, just so we have 2 of them there. Looks cool. There's, you could do, this is a very flat kind of hologram reference, as if the watch had like a screen on it, but you could you could have something projecting out. You could have like 3D text. You could have a globe, Earth model, rifle scope, anything, big thumbs up, or whatever you want. 3D model, 2D model, anything. Because the watch is tracked in 3D and we have it in a 3D program, we can really do whatever we want. So I'm just gonna save that. As far as that, maybe I'll make that really long. Make it look really, really weird. Actually, I'll probably just delete it or something. Yeah. And there we go. You can do the same thing with tracking a head or face. If you want to put a helmet or glasses on someone, you could track someone's hand to put a weapon in it. You could track a vehicle moving past the camera. You could track a plane. Anything really you want that has nice motion and trackable features. So that is the conclusion. That is the end of this tutorial. I hope it helped you in some way with motion tracking in Blender, as well as a bit of compositing. And thank you.